Wiltshire, England, July 1996. One of the most complex and spectacular crop circle designs ever seen appears in a field opposite Stonehenge.
The so-called Julia set appeared right next to Stonehenge. Now, the Julia set takes its name from a fractal, which is a mathematical shape. This was intricate, complex. There's an interesting story that apparently a taxi driver saw this formation just appearing suddenly, magically, as if some unseen, hidden force was making the pattern. Some people have said that they were symbols that are meant to convey information. And it's the conveying of information that I think is the important thing here. That really might be the key to unlocking the mystery here.
Could it be that the incredible crop formation that appeared next to Stonehenge was a message from extraterrestrial visitors? If Stonehenge was built as a portal to the stars, can this technology be reactivated? And might the mathematical information contained within the Julia set provide the key to reopening the portal?
When we look at Stonehenge, we have to wonder about the energy there. So early on, it becomes a site where things are happening. Extraterrestrials are landing here, perhaps. But it all starts with some activity early on in this special place.
People speculated that the ancients were able to perceive power, earth energies, mysterious forces that perhaps modern humans have lost the ability to perceive. Maybe the theory is that we've got smarter in other ways, but we've lost a certain something, the ability to perhaps tap into these ancient power sites.
Does a megalithic stone circle, standing alone in the English countryside, represent the remains of the most sophisticated technology to ever exist on Earth? A technology which was part of a vast global network of similar structures that were not only capable of generating vast amounts of energy, but also the means by which alien visitors could both arrive and depart. Perhaps the stones that still remain were deliberately left standing so that humankind would one day restore this lost technology, reactivate it, and ultimately reunite with the ancient builders who still exist light years away.
This is Woodhenge. This was a smaller monument consisting of 6 concentric rings of wooden posts that pointed up towards the sky as much as 4,000 years ago. And this monument itself, being circular in the same way that Stonehenge was, suggests to us that the 90 stones around the edge of Durrington was a huge great circle in itself. The largest ring of stones anywhere in Europe, perhaps even in the world.
Incredibly, the newly discovered Superhenge is not all that has been uncovered beneath the earth here. Since July 2010, an international team of experts, as part of the Stonehenge Hidden Landscapes project, has been mapping the entire area using the latest technology. More than 15 underground sites have been found.
The landscape around Stonehenge is actually archaeologically very, very rich. Rather than Stonehenge being this monument that sits by itself in Salisbury Plain, what has been revealed is that it is part of a vast sacred landscape that once covered Salisbury Plain and went all the way down to the River Avon.
There's no doubt that these finds will cause English archaeologists to have to revisit everything we know about Stonehenge, because Stonehenge is not going to be considered an isolate or something that's curious.
While mainstream scientists believe Stonehenge and its surrounding sites were ancient ritual and burial grounds, There is no written record to explain why ancient people chose to move and erect massive blocks that weigh up to 50 tons, some of which were transported from over 100 miles away. And now that a second Stonehenge has been found, the theory that these sites were simply burial grounds has been thrown into greater question.
These ancient people had a great deal of knowledge about how to align these structures perfectly. So we're dealing with an advanced civilization, to say the least, where they had that knowledge, where they got that knowledge, where they developed the ability to put these incredible monuments together. It boggles the mind.
Archaeologists believe that Stonehenge's two rings of standing stones may be simply the remains of a much larger structure based on the presence of the earthen henge that surrounds it. This has led to speculation that Superhenge also contained additional rings, and that these structures might even have had walls and roofs. But if true, was this area of England much more than simply a site of religious ceremony?
When we look to these extraordinary structures on Earth, it makes you wonder, did extraterrestrials have a hand in creating these massive monuments, or did they teach humans how to build these monuments?
So you have to wonder what the purpose of these giant stone circles are around the world. Is it possible that they were some kind of spaceport or conceived city?
Is it possible that Stonehenge and the many structures that surround it are the remnants of an extraterrestrial spaceport? Archaeologists today believe that this great Neolithic stone circle has stood on the plains of Wiltshire, England for no less than 5,000 years. An outer ring of 30 4-ton stones surrounds 5 huge arches whose massive blocks weigh 22 tons each, and which were somehow transported from 120 miles away. It's an astonishing feat of ancient engineering, and the mysteries about its construction still remain.
Some of the stones at Stonehenge weigh between 50 and 70 tons. Some of the stones are even heavier. So how could you have moved these into place? How could you have moved them from Wales, where the blue stones, the spotted dolerite, came from within Stonehenge?
The blue stones from which the original Stonehenge was constructed were transported from 120 miles to the west, from a place called the Preseli Mountains, which is the only place in the British Isles where you can get that kind of stone. Now, how they were moved is a mystery.
The predominant theory as to how the megalithic blocks were moved is that the builders fashioned sledges and rollers out of tree trunks to lug the blue stones from the Preseli Hills, then transferred them onto rafts and floated them first along the Welsh coast and then up the River Avon towards Salisbury Plain.
You know, this idea that all these ancient blocks were moved with wooden rollers is very interesting. However, do you know what happens to wood when you put 20 tons on a wooden roller? It'll just get crushed to smithereens.
However they did it, it must have been very important for them to move these particular stones to Stonehenge. And that's a mystery. That doesn't happen anywhere else at stone circles in the country. They only come from stone that's quarried locally.
However Stonehenge was constructed, it involved moving much more than just the stone blocks that stand today. According to researchers, this is just 25% of the original monument, the center of a much larger structure that was surrounded by multiple concentric circles, constructed over a period of more than 1,000 years.
So Stonehenge is very interesting in that it evolves over a very long period of time, and the first thing that goes up at Stonehenge is not there anymore. It's the 56 holes that today are known as the Albury Circle. It used to be filled with the blue stones from Preseli.
Around the outside of the stone circle is constructed a ditch and embankment. This is the so-called henge structure that stands around Stonehenge, from where it gets its name.
Many mainstream scholars suggest that Stonehenge was simply a place of worship and a burial ground. But why would the ancient people of Britain have spent more than 1,000 years to build what amounts to a church and a cemetery?
And the big problem is we don't really know who these people were. We don't really know where they come from. So we find similar structures around the world that show incredible levels of sophistication, like the pyramids of Giza in Egypt, like Machu Picchu in Peru. So why not in ancient Britain? Why not have a very advanced civilization here?
The fact that we now know that Stonehenge was part of a much larger superstructure indicates to me that we've only barely scratched the surface. What did it all mean?
At the famous site of Stonehenge in Wiltshire, England, are concentric circles of massive boulders, each nearly 13 feet tall and weighing up to 25 tons. On the island of Malta, in the Mediterranean Sea, the Gigantea temples contain megalithic blocks weighing as much as 50 tons. And on the remote South Pacific island of Rapa Nui, better known as Easter Island, there are nearly 900 ancient stone statues that stand as tall as 30 feet high and weigh up to 90 tons. These ancient megalithic sites are thousands of miles from each other. However, the local traditions of the indigenous cultures at each location claim that they were constructed by giants.
It's fascinating that around the world, wherever you have megalithic ancient sites, there are local legends that the giants built these places. For example, in Pumapunku, they say it was built overnight by giants. They say Stonehenge may have been built by giants. In Malta, they are suggesting that all these megalithic walls and structures were built by giants.
To me, what's astonishing is that you have ancient sites associated with giants building them all around the planet, but you also have historical documents that talk about the unearthing of giant bones at these sites, like at Baalbek, Lebanon, in Stonehenge, in Sardinia. You have these historical documents that talk about giant bones that were unearthed. We have an account from the American Geographic Society in the 1860s where giant bones were unearthed and documented.
Until recently, the megalithic sites in southern Turkey were hidden beneath the earth and completely unknown even to the local populations. So no record or ancient legends exist to explain how they were constructed. But might certain details, like the 8-fingered figures and the large stone head found at Karahan Tepe, connect these sites with giants as well? Could they have been built before the biblical event known as the Great Flood, and with the help of the Nephilim, the hybrid beings described in the Hebrew Bible?
As we go around the world, there's talk about a race of giants involved in the construction of these megalithic sites. Also, what can we say about this? Were these the descendants of the builders of Karahan Tepe and Göbekli Tepe? And did their giant genes get passed down from this early era to these other megalithic areas around the world?
Curiously, many of the megalithic sites around the world have features that perfectly align with specific constellations, star systems, or celestial events. Stonehenge in England was built to align with the sunrise on the summer solstice, as was the Temple of Mnidra on the island of Malta. Pyramids in both Egypt and Mesoamerica were positioned to line up with the belt stars of Orion. And celestial alignments have also been found at Karahan Tepe, with the stone face that is positioned to align with the sun at certain times of the year.
One of the enclosures, structure at Karahan Tepe, points directly towards the sun as it sets at the time of the summer solstice. Another alignment is at the midwinter solstice, at Karahan Tepe. The sun, just after sunrise on this date, would have illuminated this head so that anybody actually inside this shrine would have seen the head light up.
These are people who are now watching the stars, they're looking at constellations, they're seeing the movements, they're studying it. In a way, they become the first astronomers. And that would be perhaps what Karahan Tepe was, in a sense, an astronomical observatory. But at the same time, perhaps they're interested in certain stars because these are the stars where the Anunnaki came from.